So today is the fourth day. We'll be starting a new section. We'll be starting JavaScript today. This will be the first programming language. So let's get started. Let me share my screen. So let's get started. JavaScript. So JavaScript is our first programming language. It is the backbone of the internet. It's the backbone of all the websites out there. It's basically connected to the browsers. It's just like the HTML and CSS are kind of connected to browsers and they work with browsers. JavaScript is the same. JavaScript is very powerful language when it comes to web development, and especially these days with the frameworks and things like that, it became much more useful. So some of the objectives today would be we will understand we at the end of the day you should have this you should be able to do this, understand what JavaScript is, explain the uses of JavaScript in web development. You also should know where to put the JavaScript in your HTML. You should be able to explain the changes made by ES6, and we will learn what that is, ECMAScript 6. You should also know, you should be able to explain what the global object in JavaScript is and be able to use a basic math objects. You should also be able to write a control flow and using if and else statement. And the last one would be you should be able to write a for loop or while loop statement in JavaScript. So those are things that we will do, and then after that we will have some time and we will explain the build week. So tomorrow we have build week, not build week. Tomorrow we have a sprint project. So if you go back to the assignments, tomorrow is the fifth day. We have sprint project. The sprint project is it's gonna start tomorrow morning. It's a 4 hour long assignment. If you finish it ahead of time, that's good. But basically, you'll be building a website. So it's a combination of everything you learned, and it's a test basically. So you will start from scratch. You have 4 hours to finish it, and you will be by yourself. So you will not be working with anyone. So we'll also get to that and understand how it works and things like that. So every Friday is like this. So every Thursday we'll explain the next assignment, which is the sprint project. Today we'll explain a little bit more so you understand what to expect. But from here on, every Friday, you will have that project. So there will not be a lesson on Friday. Okay, so let's get started. What is JavaScript? So in two or three words, can you guys tell me what do you think JavaScript is? What do you think is JavaScript? What do you think it does in general?
JavaScript, it's what allows you to make you interact with the website.
Okay.
Without JavaScript, the website is just like a place where you can see the pictures and the slides that are moving around, but you
Mm-hmm.
cannot connect to anything.
Okay. Good. Um. uh, So yeah. So definitely that's correct answer. So JavaScript helps you create interactivity into the website. So here in our description, it says JavaScript is the third of the major building blocks of web page. The others are CSS and HTML. Without it, we wouldn't have dynamic content and usability we expect from modern websites. So the modern websites that we have, for example, social media websites like Facebook, they all work with JavaScript and they all use JavaScript. So it's a very powerful language when it comes to that. So here it says, so JavaScript was first created in 1994, and it adds functionality and interactivity to the website. It's what makes the web page run. JavaScript was originally designed purely on the front end and for the web developers. So way in the back, way in the back in the days when around 2000s, even before that, people used to use JavaScript for basic things for the front end. So I see Suhaib send me a message and explaining what JavaScript does. That's correct. JavaScript makes websites page interactive. That's correct. Okay. Welcome, guys. Abdulkadir and I think that's Abduhab. Welcome, guys. So we already get started today. The lesson is JavaScript, so we're explaining what JavaScript is. JavaScript was created in 1994 by a man called Brendan Edge. I think that's his name. He created JavaScript so that he could write small. He could run small scripts on the browsers. So it was designed to run small scripts on browser. Eventually, JavaScript was used to do pop-ups. So if you have seen pop-ups before in browsers, when you go to our website and you have a pop-up that's come to you, or you have a text that's sliding, kind of moving across the screen, or you have a slider where you change images. Those were the main things for JavaScript that were used at the beginning. So JavaScript runs in something called V8 engine. So V8 engine is a interpreter, and it is in every browser. So it's in Google Chrome and Firefox and all of them. So V8 engine is the interpreter of JavaScript. JavaScript is a high level language. That means this language is first interpreted and then it's compiled, and that's how it's how it's processed. um, Basically what that means is there's languages that are low level. They're close to the machine, they're close to the zeros and ones, but JavaScript is way far from the zeros and ones. So it's a high level language. JavaScript, Java, and other languages similar to it are called high level languages. Uh, so there is also JavaScript also runs in the backend using Node.js. Node.js is also a way to run JavaScript in the backend, where you can run it in a server. So you could use it in the front end, you could use it in the back end. It's used in mobile development by using frameworks like React Native. It's used in Internet of Things. It's used in game development. It's used in so many places these days. So before it was just only for just front end development, but now it's used almost in everywhere. JavaScript also, we'll talk about a little bit more of we'll talk about more of ES6. So JavaScript has there's organization originally from like Europe, that's called ECMAScript. So what they usually they started something called ECMAScript. ECMAScript is a way to track the versions of JavaScript. So if there's any changes, new changes to JavaScript, that organization ECMA kind of takes those changes and validates and sends it to the browsers. So the browser creators like Chrome, Google, they say, okay, we found these changes. We think these changes are good for JavaScript. Apply them to your browser so it can run. So ECMA is an organization that kind of makes changes to JavaScript. So the recent change, the last change was ECMAScript 6, and ECMAScript 6 was 2015. So some people even say ECMAScript 2015. So it was 2015 last change that was made to JavaScript, and there were a lot of things that were added to JavaScript. For example, they added a way to kind of declare variables. They also added a class. They added a few other things. So they kind of updated JavaScript. So ECMAScript 6. If you ever see ES6, that's what they mean. The updates that were made in like 2015. Um, Another thing is JavaScript is not same as Java. They are two different languages. So if you ever hear someone saying, Oh, JavaScript is a Java is a shortened version of JavaScript. Some people say that, and it's very sad. But in reality, JavaScript is completely different from JavaScript. Java mainly only runs on the backend, on a server, and also it's used to build mobile apps and things like that. So, but JavaScript is different. JavaScript runs in the browser and also runs in the backend, but in the backend it was recently introduced. I think it was 2013 when the backend was introduced, which you could use Node.js. So yeah, so that's the difference. The JavaScript and Java are totally different. You could run JavaScript in your browser. So just like here, this image, if you click inspect in your browser and you go to console log, you could type JavaScript right there. So we can actually test it right here, right now. So if we say inspect and we go to console log or console and we clear up this stuff, we can say we can run Java in here, right here. So we could say, let's say something like some basic JavaScript stuff. We could say you could run you could run math with Java. So you could say something like 3 plus 4. It will tell you. So you could say 40 plus 40, 80. And it will tell you also it's a calculator, normal calculator. You will say 30 times 40. It's a normal calculator. So you could it's in the browser, basically. It's in the browser. So that's very powerful. It runs in the browser. So that means it's basically everywhere. Okay. So we will be using a website called Rebel right here. I'll share the link. So go ahead and create an account in Rebel. Um, I'll share it in the part-time group. Go ahead and make account in that website. Um, it's a website where you can run JavaScript, and they have a JavaScript editor, just like CodeBen that we were using. Rebel is just like that. So I'll create a new Rebel, and I'll say Node, and I can give it a name. I'll say Intro to JavaScript, and it will give us this playground. It will give us this place where we can run JavaScript. You can run JavaScript here, and it will execute right here. So let me zoom in. So okay, so this is what we have, and we could play around and just type things here. So just go ahead and sign up to that website, create an account, so you could run your tests and stuff if you want. You don't have to do it right now. You could just keep watching the lecture if you want, but that's is optional. And right here, I have a something you could try out. So you could type something here, and it will run. So I ask you to type "Hello World" right here, and it will run. So let's actually try it here, because if I do that one, it will have a permanent changes. So we will say something like we will create a variable and we'll call it hello world. But before that, before we create variable and we reach variables, let's actually console log. Console log, if you ever hear console log, it means send it to the console. So log means send something, or keep track of something, and then that's what the console logs. So this is the console log. So basically take this code that we're going to put right here. So we'll say hello world, and run it here. Another way you will see a console log is just the one we were looking at right now, the browser. It says console here. It says console. So console is wherever you run your JavaScript, especially in the browser. So this is the console, and we could run same command here. So let's actually run this command and say run, and it kind of shows us hello world. So, and also when we do here console log hello world, I mean, you could just do that, and it will say hello world. So it does the same thing. So if you ever hear console, it means a place that you could run your code in the browser. Okay, so now we run this command. Now we have something working for us. So the next thing would be, how do we connect JavaScript to HTML? There's two ways to connect JavaScript to HTML. So as you can see here, this is an image of HTML file. So we have the header, and we have the body. So JavaScript, you could put it on the header, and this is called internal. So the internal, just like the CSS, it's not good. It's always good to put the JavaScript in a different file. That's not same, not the same file as the HTML. So right here, we can actually create a new. Let's actually go here and create a new file. Let's go to here, section. Let's go to full time, week 1, day 4. All right. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a new folder. We're gonna say lecture, and open it in editor. So I'm gonna show you how to connect JavaScript. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a new just index.html, basic HTML file. We're gonna give it the basic HTML commands. So for me, I have a extension in my what do you call VS Code that creates the HTML tags for me automatically without me typing out the whole thing. But for you, you might want to type out. So if you want to get that extension, let me know. I can send it to you. All right. So the next thing would be create a index file. So not index, create a JavaScript file. So go here and we'll say something like index.js, and that will be our JavaScript file. So now we'll just connect it to here. So we don't need all this. Just get rid of that. So instead of main, we will say index. So now it's connected. But before we connect that, this is the external way of connecting it. Before we connect that, we can run JavaScript right within here. So let's just get rid of this, and let's run actual JavaScript within here. So what we could do is we could say we have to say script. So the tag you need to use every time you want to use JavaScript is a script. Remember, in CSS we said you have to run style. You have to write down a style here as a tag, but for JavaScript, it's always you put it between a script. So just like our example, we can write the script here. You could also say type is equal to text slash JavaScript, but you don't have to. So we could say alert, alert, and then we just say something like JavaScript is amazing or something like that. So now if we run this HTML file anywhere, so let's open the folder here, and if we open it, it will give us pop-up of JavaScript is amazing. And another thing to keep in mind is that you see now we have the pop-up, but it's still loading. So if we don't close out the pop-up, the page will not load. For that reason, it's not good to put the JavaScript in the header. It's good to put it in the footer. So we will move this to the footer. So don't ever put JavaScript in the header. We just put it right here before the closing tag of the body. That's where we'll put it. So now when the page loads, so let's see, we have something like H1, and we'll say JavaScript and JavaScript introduction. Intro. I can't even spell intro. So so now the page will load, and then the JavaScript will load. So now if we refresh and we say that, so this one is a pop-up, that's why it's not loading. But if we had like console, so instead we could say here console log, and we refresh it, it still loads. But if you want to say that, if you want to see that message, JavaScript is awesome, you have to go to you have to right click, inspect, go to console, and then you'll see here JavaScript is awesome. So if I say something like check the console log, that's how you check the console log. If you have any errors, any issues, you always check the console log. And you could console different things. So that's how you run JavaScript. Um, I see Abdul have said XSS. So that's a security stuff. It's a little more advanced than the lesson today. But you're right. So when you run in the JavaScript in HTML, there's always a security issue. Um, Cross-site scripting attack. That's what they call it. So let's move to the next step, which is external. So this is internal, and it's not recommended. Don't usually use internal. The external is better. So external is just the same way we did before, where we had JavaScript in here. So we'll just undo what we did, and then go back to the way it was before. So this is better way of running JavaScript, and also add add the type text JavaScript. It's better to do that. Type is equal to we'll say text JavaScript, so that the browser knows basically what it's getting. So that's how you connect JavaScript to the HTML. So now if we add something here, if we say something like console log hello world, and we say from JavaScript file, and we save it, and we go here to the HTML file, and we refresh it, as you can see, hello world from JavaScript file. So this is a hello world from JavaScript file. So that's how you run JavaScript in the browser. Okay. So we understood how to run JavaScript in the browser. Now the next step would be comments. How do you write comments in JavaScript? So there's two ways to write comments in JavaScript. So if you want to comment out basically one line, you just need two dashes. That's what you need. So this is only for one line. And if we save now, it will not run. So you will not see this code. So that means you're telling the browser don't run this. You tell it. So you'll have this color, and it will be different color than the other one. So let's say you have multiple lines of JavaScript. So let's say you have multiple lines, and you have different things. Now how do you console log? You could do one at a time, one line at a time, or you could just do the same thing as we did here, which is put in the slash, and then put in the asterisk, and then there's a closing asterisk and such. So we do that, and then we close it with another one. So we say that, and then like that. So that's how you do multiple line JavaScript commenting. So commenting is pretty easy, and it's really important when it comes to programming. You will learn more about commenting, but if you write as much comment as you need, a lot of times if you're writing something and you want to explain a little bit more of what it does, and you're worried that the person will not understand, then go ahead and write a comment about it. But don't write comment if it's just something very simple. Let's say if it's just a variable, and don't write a comment that says, let's say you wrote down like this, and uh, and then you wrote a comment on top. You said something like, "This console logs this message." You know, this is very simple to understand, so you don't have to write a comment about it. But if it's a little more complex and it's a function or something like that, write a small concise comment about it. And let's say you updated the code, always update your comment too. There's a whole book about how to write a comment, and the importance of comments. And that book is called Clean Code. In the future I'll share with you guys Clean Code. All right. The next thing we'll go to is variables. What are variables? Can you guys tell me? Anybody? What is a variable? What is variable? What do you guys think?
But it's a place where you can store things.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, you could store something. Okay. Can you store like can you store numbers?
I
Y- Can
think
you store
you
numbers
can,
in variables?
uh, I think you can install. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Um, uh, anyone else wanna add something to it? Okay. So you're right. So variables are something you could store with.
variable wax walba qiimo la siin karo ma miya macna
So variable. So I'm asking. So you guys can just tell me what you guys think.
Yes.
We'll get to it, inshallah. I'll explain everything. I'm just I want to understand where you guys are. What do you think is variable?
waxa weeyaan
Go ahead.
haddaan isku dayo variable waxa weeyaan waxaad meel aad data ku kaydsan karto datadaasna ay noqonayso mid isbedbedeli karta oo aysan ahayn wax joogto ah oo aanan isbedelayn laakiin variable qiimaha lagu shubo
Okay.
I think it cannot numbers cannot be stored in variables because it can cause problems. Like if you say c alec 2, and then c is the variable, and then if you want to decline another number saying like 2 alec 5, it can cause problems because of it only it's the best to use variables like alphabets, and then
Okay.
you declare the numbers.
Okay, that's good. That's good point. That's a good point. Definitely, there is a lot of differences when it comes to languages. So, if you have seen other language, JavaScript is a little bit different than other languages. So, you might have seen other language. So, I'll explain how JavaScript kind of defines a variable. So a variable, think of it as a like if you go to your kitchen and you get a cup of tea. If you get a cup of tea, that cup is the variable. So the cup is the variable, and the tea is the content, is the information that you store in that variable. So you could always change the tea to water, right? So you change the tea to water, but the container is still the same. You could switch around the container. You could find another cup, but you have to completely change that and find another one. So that's what variables is. A variable is something that you could store with anything. So you could store text, you could store numbers, you could store almost anything in JavaScript in a variable. So we will learn that there's different types of variables in JavaScript. Other languages they're different, but in JavaScript there is about three ways to declare or say, okay, this is a variable. For example, I was giving an example of the cup. So if you have in JavaScript, we have a cup that you could switch the information. You could switch the content. You could add water to it, and you could remove the tea. We have one that you cannot switch. So once you say, okay, this cup has tea, you always have to put tea in it. So you cannot change it. So in JavaScript, it has different types of variables. So let's read up here. So a variable is a way to store, change, and use data in code. To explain this concept, consider your favorite web page, maybe Instagram, maybe an online game. More likely, there are a lot of changing pieces of these pages: Instagram, likes, and users. So an example here is, for example, Instagram. So Instagram, you have likes, or any other like Facebook, you have likes. So those likes are variable. So you take the like of so and so, you store it in variable. You say, how many likes does this post has? It has 20 likes. Those 20 likes go into one variable. And it says, okay. And then every time there's a new like, you increase the number. You say, okay, the likes increased, add one more. So that's how you usually store. A variable. Also consider a game, for example, a soccer game. So we have two teams in soccer game. The score starts at 0. Then you could have a variable that says score team so and so, and then you say equal to 0. Score team and so equal to 0. Now, one team has a goal, then you just increase one of that team. So that's how you usually keep track of the score. So that's how you can store variable in anything. So there's three types. There are three keywords used to declare variables. So in JavaScript, there's three of them. There's var. Forget about this minus. So there's var, there's let, and there's constant. So these are three ways of declaring variable, and they are completely two different, and they all do in a different way. Constant and let are kind of close, but var is completely different. So each keyword comes with slightly different use cases, mostly based around what happens when the changes of the value in the variable. So the changes between these three ways of declaring a variable in JavaScript comes how you access the content. So the content in the variable. Before we explain what var is, let me just show you an image of how to declare a variable. First, you have a keyword. So the keyword could be var, it could be let, it could be constant. And then you name the variable. So you give it a name and you say, okay, now the variable name is here and is equal to, this is called the assignment operator. Assignment operator basically takes this information right here and puts it in here. So it gives it kind of like assigns this name to this content. And this is called the value. And we will learn how to, we will learn strings and numbers. Usually when you have a string, which is just a text, a string is a text, you always have a quote around the string. So what is var? It's good to understand the difference between var, let, and constant. That will help you a lot. So var is ES5's way of declaring variable. We talked about what ES6 was. So ES6 was ECMAScript 6. So it was 2015 when JavaScript was updated. But before that, there was a ES5, which I think was 2013 or 2010 changes. But even before that, the way variable used to be declared was var. So this was the normal way. This was the old way since 1995, 1994. It was var. So this is generic variable keyword. Variable created with the var can be changed without causing any errors. So the problem with this var, the reason why we have let and constant, is that var can be easily changed. So if you declare var at the top of your code, and then in the middle you declare again. So let's say you say var name equal to James Bond at the top, and then you go all the way to the code, and then you say var name equal to whatever, your name. Now James Bond changes to your name, so you change var. So let's say you build in a whole application and you forgot that you already declared the name at the top, the var. So you declare var name at the top, you forget about that, and then you declare it again, and you said var name. Then now you're confused. You don't know what happened. So you will have error, you'll have issues. So that's where let and constant come, and they don't allow you to change. So for example, constant, it doesn't allow you to change the content of the variable. It will give you error. It will say we declared name. You cannot declare again. So what do you want to do? Do you want to have another name, something like that? So that's why var, we don't use var anymore. So if you're building something in JavaScript, always use let or constant. So there's very few cases where you use var, but mostly var is an old way of declaring a variable. So if you want to declare var, this is how you declare it. So we have this. So let's comment this out, and we say var. Let me zoom in so you guys can see clearly. So we say var, let's say something like name equal to my name. So let's say Duranale. Now, if we run our file, you will not see anything. So right here, if we run anything, there's nothing. The reason for that is we have to call this function, not function. We have to call this variable. So we say console log, and we just call name. The reason we're not putting quotation, I don't know why it put a, yeah, it says, as you can see, I have extension that tells me don't use var, so it's putting across around it and across it. But the reason we're not putting quotation around it is because this is a variable. It's not a string. So the string is right here, and the variable is right here. So now if we say save and we run this page, you see it says run on it. So that's how you declare it. Let's say we also want to declare something like var age equal to 35. So and then you could also console log that too and say age. Okay, and now it will and if we run here, you see the age 35. So var, that's what's good about it. But the problem here is if I say var name is equal to Muhammad Abdi, let's say, and we can put this comma, a semicolon at the end, or we can just not do it. So JavaScript allows you to put a comma, a semicolon at the end, or leave it. So we can leave it now. So now if we say, what do you think is going to happen now if we run? What do you think it's going to show here? What do you guys think?
Mohammed Abdu will show. It's gonna overtake a name. Duran Ali, I think.
Okay. So you're right. So that's the problem with var, is that whatever you wrote with var, if you write again and you say, okay, name is equal to something else, it will just override and it will forget this. So, and that's not good for like programming, because you want things to be consistent. So that for that reason, we moved away from var. Now we move to let. So let's actually explain what let is. Actually, let's explain let first before constant. So let is a new ES6 variable keyword. So let is a new way of declaring variables. This will assign variable much like var, but with a little bit different behavior. Most notably, it differs by creating block level scope. For our purposes at this moment, let's let and var functions almost exactly the same. So the difference between let and I put here constant. I should have put let. So the difference between let and var is something called global scope. Global scope function. So there's a local scope and there's a global scope. So this is a little bit more advanced, and we will learn more about that. But just to explain a little bit, it means that if you declare a let within a function, so you create a function, and we'll learn what functions are. But let's say we create a function and we call it something like my name, and we close it, and we declare here, we say let, and we declare something like name is equal to something. Um, you could access, you can't access this let from outside. So it's within this scope, and you cannot access it from outside. But if you have a var here, you can access it from outside. So that is the main difference between var and let. They're very close, but that's the difference. But you could also override let. So if we say here, change this to let, I'm change this to let. So now we should have error. Okay, so yeah, so let actually does have doesn't allow you to actually change this, but it allows you to modify the content, this content. So that's it's one of the things that's good about let and constant, is that they don't allow you to change the content, the information, especially when you already declared the variable. So it actually I think they updated recently, but it doesn't allow you to change the variable, just like constant. So even constant is same thing. So now if we say this instead of that, say constant, we say here constant, it will give you another error. It will say the same thing. So it will say the same thing. So let's go to constant. A constant variable is a variable that cannot be changed later code. In short, it's constant. So the word, it came from the word constant. It means you cannot change. So once you declare the word, you cannot change it. So it's the same thing. And if we declare here something like constant age is equal to 20, and now we declared age here, it will give you error. It will say, it will give you another error. It will say, sorry, we cannot have that. So that's the difference. So always use let and constant so that your code is consistent and you don't have issue. Okay, we'll get to JavaScript data types. I'm not sure if we should take a break. Let me see. Do you guys have any question about that so far? Any question about comments, variables, let, constant, all that stuff? Okay. Let's finish the data types quickly. Let's see what's the next. We have math operators, and then after that we have this logic. Okay, so we'll go over it. So let me finish data types, and then maybe we can take a break. So what are data types? Can anybody tell me what data types are in JavaScript? Just a couple of words. What do you guys think it is? Data types. You could also write if you want. So okay, I'll give you guys a second to think about it. Okay. And make sure the 30 minutes before the class, we designed it so that you could read up these parts. So even if you don't read a lot, just read maybe the first description, so you can understand what things are. So from now on, when it reaches something like 9 a.m., just open the lesson, look at it, read up, and look, just understand the concepts, basically what they are. You don't have to understand deeply, but just the basics. Okay, so every programming language has the data types. So data types are types of data. So for example, we have text, we have numbers, we have other things. For example, we have true or false. We also have functions, we have objects. So there are a lot of data types. There's also negative numbers. So what do you do with negative numbers? What do you do with positive numbers? What do you do with the large numbers? So things like that. What do you do when there is nothing? So if somebody says, okay, if I say something like, let's say now we have name, age, something like that, and I just ask something like, I want to know, you just say city. So you want to know where this person lives. What happens? So now if we actually just go back to var on everything, var, so that we have everything normal. What happens? So we declared city, and what happens after that? What kind of data types should we assign to that? So in JavaScript there is it's something called undefined. So I don't know why it's doing this. Age. Oh, okay. We still have constant here. Okay. So now if we do something JavaScript, we have something called undefined. So this one says city not defined. So that's why we have undefined. So basically data types are simply what types of data are you currently declaring. For example, it says here, for example, if you're trying to store text, you say that the data type is a string. So if you want to store a text, any type of text, a long text, a small text, any block of text, you say string. If you're trying to store numbers, you say number or integer. So mostly in JavaScript, we just say number or integer. So any number, negative or positive, you say it's integer. There are primitive data types in JavaScript. There are primitive data types, and there are ones that are not primitive, advanced. But we'll focus on just primitive today. Primitive are just basically very plain, simple data types. The first one we'll talk about is string. Strings are just blocks of text. This will always be defined with a quotation. So strings they always have a quote around it. Just like here, Ahmed has quote around it. if you declare anything that's text, you have to put quote around it in JavaScript. You could put a double quote. So this one has a single quote. You could put double quote or single quote. It's fine. If you take a number and you put a quote around it, it becomes a string. So um, if you say something like, let's actually delete this. If you say something like this, now age is a string. So you have issue. Sometimes you could have issue. You might not actually have the issue, but if you're expecting a number, right here it shows the number, but in reality it's not a number. And I think you could say um, there's a way to know it. In Python, you could just say type of, but there's a way to know if this is a number or not. Oh yeah, so you could say type of. So if you want to know what the data type is, you could say type of, and then put the variable in there, and then it will show you in here the console log. It will say string. Now, if we just remove the quotation and we just declare as usual, it will say number. So the browser already knows what you're trying to declare. And JavaScript it's called the loosely typed language. That means it kind of guesses what you're trying to do. So if you put quotation around it, it says, okay, I think you're declaring a string. But in other languages, if you go something like Java or other languages, you have to actually say something like integer or something like that, or int. You have to say, in other languages, you have to say int. That means you're telling the program that this is a integer, this is a number, not a. So you have to actually declare. That's called strongly typed, or it's JavaScript doesn't have that, and Python doesn't have that. So that's why some people don't like that. But it also has its own benefits. So, and this one you have to say something like a string in other languages to declare it. So that's how you know the different types. So we have a string, which is just a text. We have a number, which is a number, which is negative number and positive number. And this is the size of the number. So it's plus minus that long number. So you could declare all that. And after that, it will tell you, it will give you an error. Basically, it will say you reached the limit. There's also a data type called booleans. Booleans are true and false, true and false. True or false. So right here you have a boolean true or false. That means if you declare something, if you say say var city, city, you say city is Minneapolis or something like that. You're basically saying this variable means my city is Minneapolis, and you say true. Then if you declare that and we put it here and we say we take this variable. So when you declare a variable, there's actually something I didn't mention, is that if the variable is multiple words, so the one I just declared is a city, and then I declared a is, you do that. So it's called the camel case. Camel case are basically if you want to go up and down, like not up and down. Camel case is in a camel it has like the turtmesh or correct in the camel, like it's like up and down, right? So that is where it came from. So the first letter is low, and the second letter has a uppercase. And then you have if you want to put another word, you say Minneapolis. So you make the first letter bigger. So that's how you Kurskaha. Yeah, Kurskara. So that's how you declare. It's called camel case. So if you put in any if you declare any multiple words, that's how you declare. So now if we put here the variable and we say okay, we run it in our browser, it gives us undefined because it's not same. Okay, let's go back. So as you can see, it gives us Boolean. That's because we said type of, and if we just render the variable, it will just say true, of course. Say true. So true and false are a way to declare basically true or false. Usually it's best to use it in like the if statements and things like that. So we will learn that later. There's also undefined and null. Undefined and null are also data types. Undefined is when you don't define anything. So that's when something is declared but it's not defined. So you're just trying to kind of like run something, but it wasn't. Nobody said this exists. There's also null. Null is used when you're null is basically mostly done by the developer. So null means nothing. So if you want to say something like if you put here null, it will mean this variable is nothing. So there's nothing. So null doesn't come by itself. So it doesn't just happen out of thin air. You have to declare it. You have to say, okay, this is equal to null. So null is nothing. Undefined is something that you didn't define. You didn't declare. So that's the difference. So you just run something that doesn't exist. So those are the basic primitive data types. Do you guys have any question about that? We'll take a break and come back and cover the rest, inshallah. We'll go into math operators. Any questions about that? All right. So we'll take a break. We'll come back in 10 minutes, inshallah. Go get stretch out, stretch your legs, and come back, inshallah. And we will get started with the second part. All right. I'll see you guys soon. Okay, let's get back to it, inshallah. I needed that break. Okay, let's get back to it. So let's get started. If you can, I would recommend, if you can, keep your webcam open when we're in the lecture and also the stand-up. If you can. If you cannot, that's fine. I understand. If you have a problem with the webcam, that's fine. But mostly, inshallah, keep it open. It's easier that way to. It's kind of like it helps in the future. Kind of like it's a habit, just building a habit. So in the future, if you can't do it right now, it's fine. But in the future, inshallah, if you can keep your webcam open, that would be great. So let's see. Let's get back to the JavaScript. So we were trying to do the math operators. So in JavaScript, you could do math. So you could do basic math or advanced math. So this is the basic math. So we can perform addition, subtraction, multiplication, fraction. We could do all of them. So this is how you do. So if you add 1 plus 1, it returns 2. And you could run all kind of math. So another thing you could do is you could declare a variable. So let's get rid of this. let's say let num1 equal to 2 or 3. Let's say num2 is equal to 5. So what we could do is we could add together these two and declare them. So we could put these two in a different variable. We could say something like let total is equal to num1 plus num2. I know it kind of looks like why do we have to do it, just to add the two numbers by themselves. But in programming, you will see in the future that this is very useful. So now if we console log this total, you will see that we have 8. So it's very, very powerful when it comes to development. Another thing you could do is by, if we go back to the lesson, you could also add variables, normal string variables. So if we declare this as in like, let's just say, let's declare something else. Let's say let name is equal to, let's say, Duran. And then we declare another variable. Let's say let last name equal to Ali. We could do the same thing as we did in here, and we could say something like let full name equal to we say not name plus last name. I don't know why it's a crossing out name. I'm not sure. So we just console log full name, and it will give us that. So it will give us a full name, but it will be right next to each other. So it will be just Turan Ali. If you want to give it a space, you can. You could give it space in here. You could just say, you could put a quotation in here, give it a space, and then add another plus. So, and that way you have a space, small space. So you could add numbers like that. So what we have is there are different types of methods in JavaScript. So JavaScript has methods of math. One of the methods is called it's one of the math operators. So it has this sign, and it's when you divide two numbers, the remainder is this sign. So it says something you might not have seen before. It's called the module operator. So this is the name of it, module operator. So this is not usually in math. So in math, when you divide two numbers, you will have a remainder, and you could move the remainder somewhere else, or you could add it to something else. But in programming, in JavaScript, you could use this sign to find out the remainder. So let's see example. So now this example here, you say what is how divisible is 5 to 20? So if you put 20 into 5, 21 into 5, how many times can you put 5? 4 times. because 5 times 4 is equal to 20. Now you have one remaining, and that's the one that comes back. So if we actually do here, let's just delete this. If we do something like 20, let's say 27, let's say 27, and then let's put that, and that's the module operator, and let's put 5. What do you think is the remainder? So how many times does 5 go into 27? What do you guys think? Do you have a math people in here? How many times does 27 go into 5 go into 27? So usually you just think of like what can you multiply 5 to get 27 or close to. So 5 times 5 is 25. So you should have remainder of 2. So now if we cancel log this actually by itself without the variable, and we go to the browser right here, we should have 2. That means that's a remainder. So keep that in mind. This module thing is really important when it comes to programming, because if you want to find out the remainder, then that's how you find it. There's also math.pow. So this is how you raise to the power. So if you remember how you used to do in math exponents, so you take x and then x raised to the 2 power. So this is the pow is raised to, and how you raise to that is you say math.pow. Math is always capital because it's a built-in function in JavaScript. So you say math.pow. Pow is kind of a shortened for power. So math.pow 2 2. That means take this 2, raise it to 2, and you get 4. And then you have 3 raised to 2. So that basically means 3 times 3. And this is basically means 3 times 3 times 3. So to the power of. So that's how you create math.pow. So if we go back here and we declare a function variable, let variable is equal to let's say math, let's say our math, so it doesn't intervene. We say math.pow, and then we put, let's say 6 and let's say 2. What do you guys think? What do you guys think we're gonna get from that? What do you guys think? 6. So this is raised to the power. So you take 6 and you raise 2. So 36, right? So it's 6 times 6. So 36. Let's see. What about we're gonna go into a little bit of math. What about, let's say 5? Let's put 5 here, and let's raise it to 4. What do you guys think? So it's 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. So it gets because exponents, they get really big exponentially. So it is, if you went through math, the basic math, you will know that exponents get really big really fast. So 625. So it's 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. So that's a pow. That's how you raise to the power. There's also these methods. So the first method is called math.round, and these methods are built in. So they're basically in the browser, so you don't have to worry about kind of like knowing how math.round works. You just say math.round, and then you put a number. So these help you if you want to round a number. So let's say you want to round a number to the closest number. So there's different ways of rounding. If you remember the math in school, when you're doing rounding, you do 2 different things. So you do if you go above 5, if you go above half, so let's say 6.5 is above half, so it's 0.5, then you round up, right? So you say 7. 6.4, you round down and you say 6, right? That's how you learn in school. So now that's how you could do the same thing. You say math that round, and then you put 6.5, it rounds to 7. But also we also have math.round. We have if you put 6.4, it rounds down. So this is the one that you learn in school. So it if it's lower than half, then it rounds down. If it's above half, then it rounds up. But also we have math.floor, which is different. Math.floor is that it doesn't matter if the number is above half. So if it's more than 0.5, it doesn't matter. It will always round down. So math.floor will take 6.9 and say, okay, this is 6. It doesn't care if it's close to 7 or not. We also have math.seal. That means it doesn't matter if it's lower than half, 6.3, 6.2, 6.5. It doesn't matter what it is. It goes up always. It just rounds up. So did you get that, guys? That math part, just rounding up, rounding down. Everything good? Okay. You could type a thumbs up in the Slack if you want. So I know you guys we're in the same boat. So so round up, round down. These are really important to keep in mind. I'll take down a note on this one, so that actually full time, I'll write down a note, so that in the future I can remember how they round up, how they round down. So let's just let me share that. So that's really important in the future. Okay, there's also comparison operators. Comparison. Can you guys hear me? Maybe I'm just talking to myself.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. So there's also comparison operators. Comparison operators are how do you compare things, especially numbers. How do you compare numbers? So this is really important. You could also compare other things too, but usually this is used for numbers. So in JavaScript has a number comparison and logical operators. So there's also logical operators, which we will learn in a minute. So these compare the numbers. These operators just work just as they should do in math: greater than, less than, greater than or equal to. So they work as usually as you learned in math. So the first one is greater than. This one is greater than and equal to. This one is less than. This one is less than and equal to. There's also these two. So these two are different. They're both equal. So let me just go back. Where was I? Go down. So these two, this is 3 equals. So you have never seen 3 equals in one place. So in JavaScript, the 3 equals it means these two things are exactly the same. So in JavaScript, when you compare two things, you compare multiple things. You compare the data type. So you compare if this is like this is number, this is a string, is this the same? You also compare the content. So is it exactly the same? So you compare a lot of things. So you always use the triple equal. There's also this one that means not equal. So you take the first equal and you turn it into exclamation mark, and then that means not equal to. So as you can see here, 1 is greater than 2. You will get the answer. You will get this false. 2 is less than 3. You'll get true. 10 is greater or equal to 10. That's true. But if you just said greater and you just get rid of the equal, then that will not be true. That will be false. And then you have 100 is less than or equal to 1, which is false. So that's how you know. So the triple equal sign must not be confused with a single equal sign. So in JavaScript, there's multiple things to keep in mind. There's the triple equal sign. There is the double equal sign, which is 2 equal signs right here, and there is one equal sign. So the one equal sign is the one we learned in variable. So right here, this one is one equal sign. This one is completely different than the two here we learned. So these two are same. The only difference is that the triple equal is you checking a couple of things. You checking the value and the data type. But this one, you're just checking if it's equal. So you're not checking the data type, anything. You're just checking if these two numbers are the same. But this one is completely different. This one is assignment. It's not equal, it's assignment. So in math, this one is equal, but in programming, this one is assignment. That means you're basically saying, take this content, put it in this variable. So that's what you're basically saying. You're not saying this name is equal to this content. You're basically saying, take this, move it, and put it in this. So that's the difference you need to know. So right here, so the triple equal, if you take two numbers, 1 and 1, they're equal with triple equal, true. If you take 1 and you say it's equal to a string number, a number that's a string, it will say false, because now it's checking the data type, saying, okay, is this a string or is this a number? And it's not a number, so it says false. If you take two strings, it will say, oh yeah, that's good. If you take two strings and you make one of them even capital, it will say false, because it's checking the value, the information in the string, and also it's checking the data type. So it's very, very strict when it comes to that. Okay. The sign, the exclamation mark means not. So right here as example, 1 is not equal to 1. So that's what it's basically saying. Not is 1 is not equal to 1. That is a string. It says true. So that mark means not. Let's go into logical operators. Logical operators are a couple of them. There's 1, 2. I think there's just 2 of them. Yeah. So logical operators. We can also combine two equal expressions and ask if either one of them is either true. So logical operators are, if you want to ask, okay, let's say you want to say something like, if let me show you an example. You want to say something like, is 100 is greater than 10, and also this sign, this the to percent to %, it means just an. So if you see to %, in JavaScript it means an, like the phrase an. So you're just if you say if you say something like my name is so and so and his name is so and so, so that's how you use it. So the and. If you see two lines, the two pipes, this is or. So in JavaScript, this is or. So saying my name is basically saying I'm going to the city, or I'm going to home. So one of those, saying or. So in math here, you're basically saying 10 is greater than 100 is greater than 10, or you're saying 10 is equal to 10. So the reason why this is true, that this is the answer, what it renders. We could just go run it in our text here and put it in here in the console log. And if we run in the browser, it will just say true right here. The reason it's saying true is that you say an or. You're basically saying this one, if this one is true, then we're good. If this one is true, then we're good. But if you put here and you put %, that means both of them have to be true. Otherwise, the whole statement becomes false. So now the whole statement becomes false. Well, actually, it's true because 100 is greater than 10. So let's say if we say something like 9 here and we save it, we got false. The reason for that is 9 is not greater than 10. So, but 10 is equal to 10, but 9 is not greater than 10. So now this whole statement becomes false. But if we put here or the two pipes, so the two pipes, you hold shift, and then right up above your enter, you see that. Now it becomes true. The reason for that is because this statement is true. This one is false, but this one is true. So you just go with it, the one that's true. Okay. All right, let's see. So let's go to, so you understand what the and or means. There's also not. So there's the not, We did talk about the not. So the exclamation mark, if you see, it means not. So a couple of things to note about logical operators. The expressions are evaluated in order. So something to keep in mind. So expressions, this is expression and this is an expression. They're both evaluated. So this one is evaluated first, and then this one is evaluated first. So keep that in mind. And in the computer will skip any redundant expression. And in the %, statement, if the first expression is false, the second expression will not be evaluated because both expressions need to be true. Same for the OR statement. If the first expression is true, the second expression will not be evaluated. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so we talked about operators. We talked about expressions. So the next thing we will talk about is control flow. Do you guys have any question about what we just talked about, logical operators and also comparison operators? And do you guys have any question about that? Let me know if you have any question. You could write it to me, inshallah. Feel free. Okay. So the next thing would be control flow. What is a control flow? Control flow is the if statement. So we will learn the if statement. So oftentimes, as the computer is reading and executing our code, we want the code to run only if something is true. So in the programming, you want something to happen if something is true. So let's say if you say 10, if 10 is equal to 10, then run this. You say something like if the hour is equal to 5, run this. Say something like good morning or something like that. So you want something to run when something is true. If it's false, then you want something else to run. This is known as the control flow. So you're basically controlling the flow of the code where it should go. So as you can see here, we have the age is equal to 15. So if we actually go here and write down that, we say let age is equal to let's say 15. We can say if age is greater than 18, we could say something like console log, you can drive. And we could also say, so this is the first statement. So if statement. So if you say the expression if, and then you put this parenthesis, and you say, okay, so this is the expression. So it's kind of evaluating. It's basically saying, okay, and I want to know what this is. So now, right here, see, we kind of like express that. So we said if this is equal, if the age is greater than 18, then run this basically. Now we have to have something like else. So we say else. Else means basically otherwise. Console log. Sorry, you can't drive. You cannot drive. So so that's how you create if statement. You say if the age is greater than 18, and the age is right here, it's already defined. So in our head, of course, it's gonna render this one because 15 age is not greater than 15. So now if we go and run in our browser, first we delete this. Run in our browser right here. We'll just zoom in. Sorry, you cannot drive. The reason for that is because your age is greater than is less than 18. So if you change the age to 20 and we run it, you can drive. So as you can see, it controls the flow basically of your code. So that's really, really important when it comes to programming. So what are we going to do is we're going to check a couple of things. So there is also something else that we need to add if you want to run more things. Let's say we want to check if the age is between, let's say, if the age is between 15 to 18, we will say maybe you can drive. If it's more than 18, we say you can drive, and if it's less than 18, we say you cannot drive. So let's put so instead of else, you say else. You say else if. So let's actually just get that here. We have else if. Oh, it's not connected. I'm thinking of Python. So we say else if, and then we run another expression here. So right here, instead of just else, you run expression here is if age. So we first thing we said, if it's greater than 18, we say you can drive. If it's, we say then if age is equal to, we say something like is greater than or equal to let's say 15, we say something like maybe you could drive. Console log, maybe you can drive. So this is basically saying if it's equal to 15 or greater, then we could say maybe you could drive. We can say if it's between 18 or 15. So there's different ways to do it, but I'm gonna keep it simple. And then we say else. We say console log. We say you cannot drive. So now the age is 20. What do you think is gonna happen? So we have you can drive. The reason for that is because 20 is greater than that. If we put something like 17, so what do you think is gonna happen 17? Which statement do you guys think it's gonna render?
Else if is gonna run.
Else if, okay. Let's see. Okay, yeah, you're right. Because 17 is between 18 and 15. So what if we put here 15? What do you think is gonna run? If we make it 15.
I think still the same since age is 15.
Okay,
15.
You're right. So because we said equal here, that means if it's equal to 15 or greater than that, then we run this. But if it's greater than 18, we run this. So that's how you use control flow is, and you could add as many else if statements as you want. So you don't have to have one, you could have multiple ones in here. So that's else if statement. Let's see if we missed anything here. Let me just zoom out for a second. So we just did the same thing, just a little bit different. So that's generally it. That's generally it for if statements. You basically control the flow according to what you have in here, or you don't have to have variable. You could just say something like if 20 is greater than you say if 20 is greater than 18, then you have to put something here. So the reason for variable is because you could use it in multiple places. As you can see, I used it in here and here. So yeah, so that's definitely that's very, very important. The control flow. Let's see. So I think loops is the last one. So let's conclude with loops. All right. So loops are also one of the most important parts of JavaScript. What are loops? What do you guys think? What do you think loops are? Can you give me a little bit of maybe like 2 words of what do you think loop is? What do we use a loop for in JavaScript or in other programming language? What do you guys think?
I think it's if you want things to run over and over again.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's a good point. So yeah, so you're right. So in general, programming, you have you want to have a concept called dry. The dry concept is that dry means it basically means don't repeat yourself. This means that if you have a code, you don't want to repeat yourself. Let's say we're trying to console log something. Let's delete this, and we're trying to console log we're trying to console log something like 5. So we're trying to console log from 1 to 5. So we want to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So some people might say something like this, 1, and then console log 2, console log 3. So this is terrible because you're wasting a lot of time by doing this. What if if somebody says, okay, you have to do this, but you have to do it by 20,000 times? So what are you gonna do? You just have to keep copying and pasting. You don't know how many things you have. You have to keep changing things. It's a lot of work. So instead of doing that, you have to keep it dry. So don't repeat yourself. Don't repeat a code that you don't have to. So loops are in every programming language. They allow you to run same code again. But you can also change. Let's say if you want numbers, you could say go from 1 to 10 or go from this to 10. You have to give it a place to stop. So loops are very, very powerful, but they could also break your computer or your program. So make sure you have something somewhere to stop. So if you say go from 1 to 10, you have to tell it exactly stop at 10. Otherwise, it will just keep going until millions, and then your computer will crash. So there's 2 types of loops in JavaScript and in most programming languages. There's the for loop, and there is the while loop right here. So there's the for loop and the while loop. The difference is very minor. It's not that big a deal, but they're also used in different situations. So as you can see here, I actually I gave you that example too. In general, you never want to repeat yourself. So how do you write the for loop? How do you write a for loop? So for loop is you write it by declaring with the for keyword. So for keyword. So let's say now we want to repeat 5 times so we want to do just exactly like this. We want to do this, but we don't want to do it manually like that. So now if we actually save this and we run it right here, it will give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But this is terrible because if you want to do hundreds, it will be too difficult. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say for, and then we put that, and now we will explain what we need to happen in here. So in our code, as you can see here, we will declare something called I. So I is a variable. You could actually put it here too. You could say let is equal to I. So this is called declaration. You didn't actually kind of like assign it anything. So I is where you start. So I is where you store the numbers. So we say I is equal to 0. So this is how you declare it. So you say I is equal to 0. So we put a 0. And then you say, I want this to go on as long as I is less than 5. And I want it to keep going. So there's also something called incrementing in JavaScript. Incrementing is you take the number, which is I, and I could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3, and then you say add 1 to it. So if you ever see plus plus, it means add 1. So it's just basically saying like this. So it's saying add 1 like that. It's like saying that, but instead of declaring 1, so 1 is kind of like it confuses people. So you just say plus plus, it means just keep adding to 1. So that's how you declare increment. So just right here, increment. And then now you say you get the console log. You say console log I. So now if we console log I, it should what do we have here? What is the problem? Oh, the expression. Okay, we lost expression there. Oh, instead of the comma, I meant this. Sorry. Instead of a comma, it's a semicolon. So now save it and run. So we get the same thing. So here's the issue. Now we run this instead of this one. We run this. Why does it show from 0 to 4? What do you guys think is the problem? Where does the problem come from? We said go from 0 all the way to 5 and keep going until you reach 5. and console log that each time, but it went from 0 to 4. So
I,
what do you guys think?
I think because we haven't declared it's equal to or less than 5, and you just
Okay.
said less than 5, so it kind of like it starts from 0, pushes down 1,
Okay.
from 0 to 4.
Yeah, so you're right. So we started from 0 and we said go all the way up to 5. We didn't say include 5. So we didn't tell the program go to 5. We just said if it's less than 5. And less than 5 is 4. So 4 is less than 5. So the program is like, okay, I'm going to go up to 5, but I'm not going to go to 5. So if you want to say add include 5, you say equal. You say less than or equal 5. Now, if we run, we have from 0 to 5. And the reason it starts from 0 is because we told it to start from 0. If we say 1 here, it will go from 1 to 5. So that's, you know, the program will only run what you tell it. It will not run something more than that. So now the possibilities are endless. So now if I want to write 50, so if I want to go all the way 50, instead of keep repeating myself all day, I just change that line and I just put 50, and we have all the way from 1 to 50 right there. You can make this one 500 and it will run 500 just like that. So that's very, very powerful, as you can see. Instead of writing all this, you're right. For example, if your teacher tells you, oh, you did something wrong, today you have to write a statement 100 times, you just bring your full loop and you just loop over it and just write the statement at once. And also the funny thing is you could actually write something here. So let's say 20, and you write here a statement that you say something like, I will be a good student. It will repeat 20 times that statement. Oh, it repeat 20 times because the browser actually kind of like puts it all together instead of like expanding it, but it ran 20 times the statement. So it showed 20 times. And also if we put it in the REPL, let's see if that makes a difference. Yeah, so just like that, that's what I was looking for. Instead of your teacher asking you, hey, you have to write 100 times, I'm a good student, you just say, okay, I'll write it. And in 2 lines of code, or 3 lines of code, you're done. So that's how powerful loops are. They're very, very important. So that's for loop. Another thing you could do is you could, in the future, you will learn different things. But let's say we have a variable here, and we say something like let name is equal to, let's say something like Duran Ali. So now we could say we could use this name as the number. So basically what we're saying is, as long as the number of the length of this string, as long as you have that, so we say length. Let's just say my name here because it's given across a name. So we say my name. So we say my name, as long as my name's length, how long it is, as long as it's less than that, keep saying this statement. So what we could do is we could actually, so it will tell us exactly how many times it ran. So it will tell us the length of this. So let's run this. So it's 10 characters. So that's how you usually use. You take something and you say check the length, and then it will check that length. So that's also another way to use it. All right. I talked about the plus operator, which is increment. So it's shortened for adding 1 plus 1 to a number. There's also a while loop. So let's talk about while loop and what's the difference between a while loop and for loop. So while loop is a little bit different than for loop. While loop are similar for loops is that they make it easy to repeat some action for desired amount of time. Just like for loop, they will run so long as the condition is met. The key difference is that you don't need to declare a incrementing variable when declaring. So the only difference is that, okay, so now we have the for loop here. If we declare while loop, we say while, and then we say while, let's say something like, what do we have as example? We'll say while I is equal to true, then we run this. And then we have to say, we have to put the I somewhere. So actually this one is better. Let's actually declare at the top here, let's declare something like let count is equal to 1. And then we say while count. So let's put a count here is less than. So just like the example, is less than 10. Keep running. So that's basically the difference. You're not going to add the incrementing or keep incrementing the statement. You just say as long as it's less than that. So we say as long as count is less than 10, which it is, then keep running this statement. So you basically add in 2 to count, and it will log. But we could just forget about this part. We could just log it, and it will show us. So let's do that. Console log count. So it will just basically keep going down. Okay, yeah. So it will keep going down because it's infinite. So now we're in a loop. So we're in a loop. To get out of the loop, you just get rid of this statement, and as you can see, my computer will crash and will keep going. Reason for that is because it is, as you can see, the browser is frozen. So that's not good. So you never always make sure that you declare the right loop, because now the reason for that is because this one is less than 10, and you don't want that to happen. So now everything is broken. So let's open back. I hope I saved it. Okay, so let me save that, close it, run it again. So make sure your statement is correct. It wasn't correct, so it ran. So you need to have two things. You need to have this statement, and you need to have this statement. And a simpler way would be, as long as I is equal to true, keep running this code. So how do you know I is equal to true? You could declare at the top if you want. So keep that in mind. So let's find this one instead of the one we have. So while loop, I'll show you an example of a better option, better example of while loop. Cancel log I is true. So I is not true, so there is nothing happening because we didn't declare it to be true. So let me show you an example of while loop. While loop diagram. There's a lot of ways to explain the while loop, but the best way would be a diagram. So the first thing will happen is that, let me see, that was a better diagram. This one's better. So the first thing will happen is you will create the condition. So you will say, okay, while, and then you put the condition, and then you run the code. So it will just check the code. It will say, okay, I checked the condition. Let's go here and let's check. So if the condition is true, if the condition is false, it just goes and ends the program, or keeps looping. If it ends the program. If the condition is true, then it just executes the code and it just repeats again. So let's say if the condition is as long as the condition is less than 5, like the for loop, we went to the for loop here. We said it was equal to or less than 5. As long as it's like that, it just keeps repeating like this. It just keeps going to condition. So once the condition is not true anymore, it just goes to here and exits the program. So while loop is used in very specific conditions. Most time you will be using for loop. So that's the difference, main difference. And make sure you don't get into infinite loop, which we just did, and it can crash your computer and everything. So these days the browsers are kind of smart, so they don't crash. But before it used to be that everything crashes. So yeah, so just practice, and that's how you usually kind of like understand how these stuff work. So we have about 10 minutes. I will go into. Do you guys have any question about the for loop, while loop, and we just went over? Any questions? Okay, on the control flow. Let me know if you have any question. Okay, so let's go over the tomorrow assignment. So today's assignment is you go down here, all the way down, and you click here, Introduction to JavaScript, and you do this assignment. I will actually make changes to this assignment in a little bit when we leave here. So give it maybe about 10-15 minutes after this lesson, and I will make small changes because there are problems that are not you're not supposed to do. So the problem today is that you just clone this, and then you make changes to this file. So this is the JavaScript file. You make changes to it. You follow these instructions, and then you do your assignment. So follow these instructions. I said declare two variables, assign them to a value, da da da. So do the following, and that's kind of like how you should do your assignment today. At the bottom, it console logs everything, or you could just console log and your variables and all that, and run them in the console. That's the assignment. So another important one is tomorrow's assignment. Tomorrow's assignment. Tomorrow we will not have a time to go over. You have to come in at 9 and just get started right away. So tomorrow we have a spring project. What is a spring project? The spring project is a combination of everything that you have learned: the CSS, the HTML, the JavaScript, the basic JavaScript you just learned, the variables, and the if and else statement. Is a combination of all that in one project. So this week's spring project, you have survived the whole week. So if you finish today's assignment, that means you have survived the whole week. So you're good. So you will build a marketing web page. So marketing website. That's what you will build. And this is an explanation of what the sprint project is. So a sprint project is not a grouped assignment. You have to do it by yourself. And if you need help, you could contact me. Please don't post solutions and don't post examples, things like that. You have about 4 hours. When time runs out, please submit all the code that you have. So tomorrow is Friday. So if you start at 9, so it will be 10, 11, 12. So you'll be done by 12. If you finish it right away, you could go to your Friday prayer. If you didn't finish it, it's fine. Just pause it, and then you could continue it after the lecture. But you have to after lecture, you'll have, if you haven't finished, you'll have an hour to finish it. So after you have to be done by everything by around like 3 p.m. If you haven't finished, if you live in Somalia, you have all the time. So the 4 hours, just starting from 9 when the class starts, and just keep going until 4 hours. So submit your code. You have to push it into GitHub. You have to add me as the collaborator, all that stuff. And then when you're done with it, we sit down one by one. So we'll just come to Zoom. I'll send you a Zoom, and we'll go over your code. So we just look at each one of them, and just ask you questions about it, and we can like go over it. So that's your assignment for tomorrow, and it's really, really, really important. If you don't pass tomorrow's assignment, it will be difficult for you to move on to the next week. So make sure you do your best. Make sure you spend the hours. Make sure you come prepared. Make sure you go over the assignments you did before to understand the different concepts and things like that, especially responsive web design. That's also really, really important. So you click here. So make sure you don't go to this assignment before tomorrow 9. So that's one of the things, is that this is a timed project. So if you do it before ahead of time, it doesn't make sense. So don't go into the code ahead of time. And also I might make changes to it. So if you do it ahead of time, you might not get that. So tomorrow, this is your assignment. You will follow the design file, just like the last time we did the responsive web design. You follow the design file and how it looks. We have the mobile and we have the desktop, and I give you a starter point, starter file. So you just fork it and clone it, and you go ahead and get started in tomorrow 9 a.m. So that's tomorrow. If you have a question, you could ask me about it, and let me know, inshallah. Let's see. So that's tomorrow. Today, focus today on this assignment to finish it as much as you can. We expect you to finish all the assignments. But if you're kind of late, that's fine. Especially if you live in Somalia, and you could like stop and wake up in the morning, and we're sleeping at that time, and then do your assignment and submit it. That's fine with me, because it gets late for you. But you have to finish it before the next day. When we wake up, when it's a 9 for me, you have to finish the assignment before that. Okay. Any questions you guys have? Any questions about the sprint project tomorrow? So the sprint project, inshallah, you guys will do good. This is your evaluation of the whole week. This project can go into your resume. So yeah, keep that in mind. It's very important. So okay, guys. If you don't have any question, I'll give you a minute if you have a question. Okay. If you don't have any question, then we will conclude here. I will see you tomorrow. I'll see you on stand up. If you come to stand up will be 4:30 for me. If you live in Somali, feel free to submit your assignment, and then you could sleep, or sleep and then wake up early in the morning and finish your assignment in the morning before we wake up. So I'll see you guys this afternoon. So, Assalamu alaikum.